Princess Ithri, I choose you. Nobody told me what you'd done.
She left him to die. 5 years later, she needed the mountain's ghost, Part 1. The Betrayal, the escort pod, screamed through the atmosphere of Voss'kaan, alarms shrieking in 3 alien languages and 1 very human curse. "Cut the restraints," said Princess Th'iel Voss'kaan, third heir to the Voss'kaan dominion, without looking back. Captain Marcus Webb, human, 29 years old, the only member of her royal escort still breathing, stared at her from the floor of the crippled shuttle. Shrapnel had opened his leg to the bone. Smoke poured from the failed engine block. Outside the shattered viewport, the black cliffs of the Ashfall Range rose like broken teeth around them. "Say that again," Marcus said. "The pod can only carry 1 signature to the extraction beacon. Mine." Her violet eyes didn't flinch. "You're a liability now, Captain. You served your purpose." He'd taken 3 rounds meant for her. He'd carried her through a burning embassy. He'd sworn an oath, a human oath, the kind his species didn't break even when it cost them everything. "Your purpose," she said again, "is complete." She keyed the release. The floor panel beneath him fell away, dropping him 20 feet onto broken volcanic rock. The last thing he saw of her was the pod's thrusters igniting, painting the mountainside gold as she vanished into the sky. She never looked down to see if he survived. She never looked down to see him get up. Part 2. The mountain, the Ashfall Range, wasn't just a wasteland. It was a myth whispered about in 100 star systems, the Choir of Knives. An order of assassins older than the Dominion itself, who, trained in the cliffs where no ship dared land and no scanner could penetrate the mineral storms, they did not recruit. They did not accept surrenders. In 4,000 years, exactly 1 outsider had ever climbed those cliffs and lived. Marcus Webb became the second. It took him 6 days to drag himself to their gates on a leg held together with a torn shirt and stubbornness. The choir's sentries found a human, a species they'd never heard of, from a world too primitive and too irrelevant to matter to the great empires, bleeding out on their doorstep, laughing. "Why are you laughing, outsider?" the sentry asked, blade at his throat. "Because," Marcus rasped, "she thought this was the worst thing that could happen to me." They didn't kill him. Later, the choir's elders would say it was curiosity. Marcus always suspected it was something else, that even an order of professional killers recognized a man who had already decided he would not die today, and found that harder to argue with than a blade. They gave him a trial instead of a grave, survived the choir's first winter, alone, in the high cliffs, with nothing but what he could carry. 9 candidates before him had failed. 91 had died. Marcus didn't just survive. He came down from the cliffs in spring with 3 hides, a working shelter, and a written log, because humans, it turned out, had an inconvenient habit of taking notes. He'd mapped the wind patterns. He'd calculated the storm cycles. He'd turned a death trial into a research project. The choir had never seen anything like it. 5 years, 1 betrayal, and 1,000 small victories later, the outsider who arrived broken on their doorstep had a new name. They called him the Ghost. He was the first human ever inducted into the Choir of Knives. He was, within 3 years, its highest-ranked blade. Within 5, he sat on its council of 9. The only non-native voice in 4 millennia, he never spoke of the Dominion. He never spoke of a princess, but he never forgot her face in the light of a departing engine. Part 3. The Return. 5 years is a long time for an empire to rot from the inside. Princess Th'iel Voss'kaan, now simply Th'iel, stripped of title, hunted by her own uncle's coup, stood at the base of the Ashfall cliffs with 2 loyal guards and a warrant for her execution pinned to every star lane in the sector. She had come here because she was out of options. The Choir of Knives took contracts no one else would touch, for prices no one else could pay, and rumor across 5 systems said their newest council member had a peculiar specialty: hunting down people who thought betrayal had no consequences. She hadn't put together who that council member was. Not yet. The sentries let her climb. An unusual mercy she didn't understand was actually an order, given personally, by name, from someone in the halls above. She reached the summit gates as the mountain's twin suns bled orange across the black rock, and found a single figure waiting for her, arms crossed, wearing the layered gray robes of the choir's highest rank. "Princess," the figure said, in a voice she recognized in her spine before her mind caught up. Th'iel went pale. "That's not possible." Marcus Webb pulled back his hood. 5 years had put gray in his beard, scars on his hands, and something cold and unreadable behind his eyes that hadn't been there before. "You dropped me from a height of 20 feet, he said, onto the exact mountain range that made me. Funny how that worked out." Her guards drew weapons. Every blade on the summit, 30 of them, unseen, unheard, pointed back before the guard's hands had even finished moving. Th'iel raised her palms fast. "I need your help," she said. Marcus almost laughed. "You need my help. My uncle has the throne. He's going to burn everything my father built. I have nothing left. No ship, no army, no allies who haven't sold me out twice already." Her voice cracked just slightly, in a way he remembered from a burning embassy 5 years ago, right before she'd used him as a shield. "You're the only one skilled enough, and the only one who owes my family nothing. I'm not asking as a princess. I'm asking as—" "Don't," Marcus said quietly. "Don't finish that sentence. You lost the right to ask me anything, as anything the day you dropped me off a shuttle to save 40 seconds of flight time." Silence. The wind cut across the black cliffs. "Then why," Th'iel said, "did you let me climb?" Part 4. The price. Marcus turned and walked into the mountain. "Because I want you to see something." He led her through halls carved from volcanic glass, past trainees sparring in total silence, down into a chamber lit by a single fire. On the wall hung a rusted, broken shard of metal, twisted, half-melted. Unmistakably, a piece of an old escort shuttle's floor panel. Her shuttle's floor panel. "I kept it," Marcus said. "Every year on the day you dropped me, the council asks me why. I tell them the truth. Because it's the only thing that's ever taught me exactly what I'm capable of when everyone who is supposed to protect me decides I'm expendable." He turned to face her. "You didn't make me the ghost, princess. You made me find the ghost that was already there. That's the part you don't get to take credit for." Thiel's jaw tightened, shame and fury warring on her face. "So you'll let me die too, consistent, if nothing else." "I didn't say that." Marcus crossed his arms. "I said I want you to see this, because I'm going to help you take back your throne, and you're going to spend every day of it knowing you don't deserve the help you're getting. That's the price. Not gold, not favors. You live with it." "Why?" she whispered. "Would you do that for me?" Marcus's expression didn't soften. "I'm not doing it for you. Your uncle is worse than you ever were. I've read the reports. He butchers colonies for sport. You were selfish and cruel to one man on the worst day of your life. He's selfish and cruel to entire worlds every day, on purpose." He stepped closer. "I've spent 5 years learning that mercy isn't about who deserves it. It's about who you decide to become regardless. You taught me that, accidentally, from 20 feet up." Part 5. The Mountain Marshes. 3 weeks later, the Choir of Knives did something it had not done in 4,000 years of recorded history. It marched. Not as an army. The choir didn't do armies, but as 30 of the deadliest operatives in known space, moving through the Dominion's capital in absolute silence, dismantling a coup from the inside in a single, brutal night. Guards fell asleep at their posts and never woke. Command codes changed hands without a single shot fired. By dawn, the usurper uncle was in chains in his own throne room, utterly unaware he'd already lost. At the center of it, coordinating 30 ghosts through comms channels the Dominion's best engineers couldn't even detect, stood Marcus Webb when Th'iel Voss'kaan reclaimed her throne at sunrise. The first thing she did, before addressing her shaken court, before accepting her crown back, was turn to the human standing at the back of the hall. Arms crossed, unimpressed by pageantry that had once meant everything to her. "Name your price," she said in front of everyone. "Anything the Dominion has." Marcus considered her for a long moment. "Escort protocol reform," he finally said. "Every human, alien, or otherwise serving your crown gets written into law as a person, not equipment. No commander, princess, or otherwise ever gets to decide someone's purpose is complete again," the court murmured. Thiel's throat tightened. "Done," she said. "Anything else?" "No," Marcus said, already turning to leave. "That was the whole point." Epilogue. The ghost of the Ashfall Mountain never took a Dominion title. He returned to the cliffs within the week, back to a life of silence and snow, and the particular kind of peace that only comes after you've stopped needing anyone's permission to matter. But the Choir of Knives tells a new story now. To every broken, half-dead candidate who crawls to their gates expecting to be turned away, they tell them about the human who was thrown from the sky and climbed back up anyway, not for revenge, but to become someone a princess would one day have no choice but to need.